All right, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. I just want to briefly talk about national income determination. This was a first class for all those that missed. All right, so when you're looking at national income, you're simply looking at the income for the nation, like it just the name itself is national income. So we're talking about the income for a country or a nation. All right. So what we are having here is the income for a country is represented by GDP. All right. Now GDP, all right, is calculated using the following formula. Though there are different kinds of methods, but in this class, I'll just focus on what is known as the expenditure approach, which is this that we are having and we are seeing here. So using the expenditure approach, you're looking at all the spendings that were done in an economy. So this C, for example, represents consumption, which is all spending by households, all right, plus the investment, which is all spending by businesses, plus government, which is the government expenditure or spendings done by the government on goods and services. Then this NX is representing net exports, which simply is exports minus imports. All right, so now we needed to look at each and every one of these. All right, so on your exams and your test, you need to be aware of what consumption is, investment, government expenditure, net exports in details. So in this short class, I just want to focus on consumption and what these things that you're seeing in front of you are. All right, so this C represents consumption. All right, so consumption by definition is the total amount of money that is spent on goods and services by households. All right, so the total amount of money that is used or that is spent on goods and services. All right, so these goods and services specialize, they are domestically produced goods and services. So let me just give the definition again, then you can write it down. So we can say consumption is the total amount of money that is spent by households on domestically produced goods and services. I'll say that again. Consumption is the total amount of money that is spent by households on domestically produced goods and services. All right, so that is very important for us to know what this C is. All right, now this C, which is consumption, is a function of A, B, and YD. So what is this A? This A simply means autonomous consumption. Now, what does this mean? You have to understand what it means. So, autonomous consumption, all right, by definition, it is consumption that is not influenced by income. Or you can say it is consumption when income is zero. So, if you look at our consumption function here, this YD is disposable income. You're looking at income, okay? So, when this Y, when income is zero, what are you remaining with? Consumption is only equal to what? This A. So when you're looking at autonomous consumption, it is simply consumption that is not influenced by what? By income. So now let me give you an example. Let's say you're going to school, all right? And you're going to school, you want to purchase a laptop. Your purchasing of that laptop is recorded in the GDP as consumption. But which type of consumption is that? When you look at that, when you're buying a laptop because of school, you're not buying a laptop because your income has increased or maybe because you're earning a higher salary now. No, you're buying that because of school. So it means that buying of the laptop is not being influenced by what? By income. So it means that amount of money that you spend will be recorded under what? Autonomous consumption, because that consumption was not influenced by what? By income. But let's say you earn a huge salary now. They tell you I've promoted you to a higher level. Now you'll be earning a higher salary. Then you see, because your money has increased, then you go like, wow, now let me start buying new clothes, or you start you go and buy a laptop, you go and buy all these. Now the reason why you're doing that is because your income has increased. So that type of consumption now cannot be recorded under what? Autonomous, because now that is consumption that will now be recorded on this other part, which is called induced consumption. So when your consumption is not being influenced by income, but you're consuming, it is recorded under what? Autonomous consumption. Hope that is very clear. So any reason, any factor that influences consumption other than income will be recorded under what? autonomous consumption. All right, so hope that is okay for everyone. So now I'll go on now to talk about this other part of consumption. Now this other part of consumption, collectively, this B that you're seeing here is called the marginal propensity to consume. Then the YD is it represents disposable income. Now, disposable income is simply the money that you remain with after all deductions have been done. So what do we mean by that? You know that when you get paid, there's what they call gross and net. Your gross is what, for example, the company is giving you. So let's say, for the example, the company promises to pay you 5,000 per month. But you know that is your gross. Your net will mean after now the deductions of the tax, your NAPSA contributions or any other contributions, NEMA and all that. So when they remove all those things, that money now that you remain with is what is called what? Disposable income. So we can say this income, then you subtract the taxes, all right? When you subtract the taxes, what you remain with is called disposable income. So for simplicity in economics, we'll just say disposable income, YD, as the formula, we'll say it is equal to your income, which is Y, minus the taxes. So you minus the tax, all right? Then you say plus transfer payments. Okay, so transfer payments, just these are monies that the government will give. For example, at UNZA, they give meal allowances. Those are recorded under transfer payments. The money that the government will spend maybe on retirees, they just want to give them to help them out. Those are recorded under transfer payments. But usually transfer payments are zero, and most of the books you won't find them. You just find disposable income is Y minus T. All right, so that is all about what? Disposable income. Now I want you to spend some time here talking about this term, the marginal propensity to consume. What is it, which is being represented by this B? Now let me just emphasize that this here that you're seeing, this, remember this A alone is called autonomous consumption. Now the BYD, this whole thing together, is called induced, induced what? Consumption. So induced consumption, this is consumption that is induced by what? Income. All right, so it is influence. To induce means to influence. All right, so that is all. So I want to now focus on this B, which is the marginal propensity to consume. What is it in layman's language? I want you to understand it, not Swatila Itai. I always want my students to understand things and not just swata what it is. So now let's say you have a 1,000 kwacha in the bank, all right, as your money that is just seated in the bank. Then well, you decide, okay, let me not say you decide, somebody just sends you money. So this money is in your bank. Okay, please go with me. You have a 1,000 kwacha in your bank. Then somebody just sends you 100 kwacha. Now this money that will come as extra money, isn't it? So you already have this, then whatever is coming in now is just extra money that you're receiving. So let's say somebody decide, they send you 100 kwacha, and you decide to spend 50 kwacha. Okay, you just spend 50 kwacha. Okay, you spend 50 kwacha on consumption, meaning you just buy something. All right, consumption, we're just buying. You spend 50 kwacha, then you decide this other 50, I'll just do what? Save it. Now that means in terms of percentages that you have, what's 100 kwacha, in terms of percentage, 50 kwacha is what of 100? Obviously it's what? 50%. That means you get 50% of 100. Okay, that means you're consuming 50% of this 100 kwacha, isn't it? Because you have a 50 kwacha. All right. Now, what does this mean? This implies that every time you receive money, you get 50% of this. All right, and you're consuming, let's say, 50 kwacha. And another person, let's say again, you have somebody sends you a 50 kwacha. All right, somebody sends you a 50 kwacha. If you have a 50 kwacha, which is extra money, then you decide out of this 50 kwacha, you consume 25%, which is just half, isn't it? Half is just 50%. So you decide to consume only 25 kwacha. That means you're consuming 50% of every extra income. So whenever you receive income, that extra income, you only consume 50% of it. So what is that 50% that you're consuming? That is what is known as the MPC. So by definition, the MPC, okay, it tells us, okay, or let me just give you a formal definition. It is a fraction or a percentage. Let me just write percentage. It is the percentage of extra income, the percentage of extra income that is consumed. All right. So here, when talking about the MPC, we're looking at how much of your money are you spending on consumption. So you say, no, I'm spending 50%. So if your MPC, for example, your MPC is 50%, like in our case, that means whenever you receive any money, you will get 50%, you're going to spend it. That's what this means. So whenever the MPC, now the MPC in terms of a number, you know that 50% in terms of a number, we're going to say 50 divided by 100, isn't it? And then it will be 0.5, like this as a number, isn't it? We just made 50% just means 50 over 100, which is 0.5. So that means whenever a person receives income, they will consume what? 50%. So if the person's MPC is 50%, that means if you give them, for example, 100 kwacha, they'll get 50%, which is what? 50 kwacha, and they're going to do what? Spend it on consumption. So that is all about the MPC that you need to know. So the question now is, how do you calculate the MPC? Now, how you calculate the MPC? All right, now let me just draw something here which is known as the consumption function. All right, all these things that we have done here, this is the consumption function, but now I want to put it on a graph. So in terms of the graph, it's going to look like this. You're going to have income on the y-axis, on the x-axis, income y. All right, then this side we're going to have what? Consumption. All right, so we have consumption there. So now, because of this A, you can see that when this Y is 0, when your income here, all right, let me just write down this. We know that our consumption is given by what? Our consumption is equal to A plus BYD, like this, isn't it? So now, this A is representing what? Autonomous consumption. That means when Y is 0 here, we're going to remain with what? With A. So that means you come here, your Y is this, x-axis, right? So it means when it's 0 at this point, our consumption is going to be A. So it means it won't start from 0, we're going to start from where? From A. And then it will come like this. All right, so this becomes our C is equal to A plus YD, BYD. Okay, I've just written this here. All right. So this is how if they ask you to draw a consumption function, don't start it from 0 here. Okay? Don't start it from here. It always starts from above 0 to represent this autonomous consumption. All right. So now quickly, let me just say this. So the MPC, we know to say it's a fraction of extra income that is consumed. Now, how do you put it? If we have a graph like this, remember how we used to calculate the gradient in grade 12? In grade 12, we'd always say M is equal to what? Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. This used to be and still is how you calculate the gradient, isn't it? Now, your MPC is the gradient, okay, of this line, the consumption function. So the MPC, this is the other definition you can find in books. They'll say the marginal propensity to consume is the gradient of the consumption function. So this line here has a gradient, and this gradient is called the what? The MPC. So here we can just do a replacement. We know that this is C, the consumption, which is being represented by C, right? And then you have our income, which is being represented here by what? By Y in the x-axis. So it means we can just get what is in the y-axis and replace it where the y-axis is, and where there's the x-axis, we replace it with income. So what are we going to say? We're going to say M is equal to, so what is our Y? Our Y is consumption here. So we're going to say C2 minus C1, all right? So consumption 2 minus consumption 1 divided by X2 is what? Our X2 is income, which is Y. So we're going to say Y2 minus what? Y1. Okay, so it means if we have 2 points here or along this line, okay, if we have 1 point here, let's say we have just in terms of coordinates. Let's say here we have 4, and then here we have 10, and then we have another point here. Let's call this 7. Then we have this other point here, and we can say this is 15. All right. So if we have these 2 points here, it means we can get to the way you used to calculate in grade 12, the same way. So you choose your x2 and your x1, then you choose your 1 point. So this one will be our x1, x2, our x1 and y1. Then this other one will be our x2 and y1. So when you do that, then you just replace here and you calculate your MPC. The last thing that I want you to know is about the MPC is that the opposite of it is the MPS. So the MPC cannot exceed 1. So the MPC ranges between 0. The answers you'll find for the MPC should be between 0 and 1. So the lowest it can go is a 0, meaning it cannot be negative, and the highest it can go is a what? Is a 1. That means the MPC ranges between 0 and 1. You need to find an answer between 0 point something, 0 point something, or the highest number is 1, the lowest number is a 0. So that is all that you need to know about the MPC. Then the last thing is just to know that the MPC plus the MPS is equal to 1. So MPC plus MPS, which is the marginal propensity to save. Exact thing that I've spoken about this. The only thing we have is that the MPS is the marginal propensity to what? To save. So when you add the MPC and the MPS, they should be able to give you what? To give you 1. So hope that was very much helpful.